So now may I request Sadhvi ji to come and give her keynote address. She's the head of the Divine Shakti Foundation. She's actually going to talk about how corporate world and society can actually come together. If you do not know, I must share one very interesting anecdote about her, that she's a Stanford graduate. And so yeah, graduate also means the same thing, I think. PhD graduate, if you might want to say. So Sadhvi ji, over to you, please. Thank you.
Param Puja Swamiji, all of the distinguished guests, all of our leaders of business, of society, of innovation, it's a wonderful honor to be here. When Amitji mentioned about this summit, even right from the beginning, the concept of shared values was something that, even though my academic background is psychology, now moving into, for the last 20 years, as he mentioned, being here in India at Parmarth Niketan, a spiritual education. Nonetheless, the economic concept of shared values was something that appealed so deeply to me and touched me so deeply that I said, right from the beginning, absolutely, we will be here. I'd like to begin by sharing one of my favorite stories, which is a story of 3 men who are stranded on a boat in the middle of the ocean. And of course, as they're stranded on the boat, they start to fight. This is what happens when we get stressed. We take it out on those around us. And the men started to do the same thing. To alleviate a little bit of the stress, they decided to divide the boat into 3 compartments. So each man would have his own 1/3 of the boat. And they drew these invisible, imaginary lines down the boat, because of course none of them had had the foresight to get stranded with a roll of duct tape. So they drew just these imaginary lines. And one day, 2 of the men look over and they notice that a leak has started to spring in the 3rd man's part of the boat. And into this leak, water is flowing. And so the 2 men panic and they say to the 3rd man, "Stop up this leak. The boat is going to sink. We're all going to drown." And the 3rd man says, "Oh, don't worry. It's only leaking in my part of the boat." And the reason I love the story so much is that we all intuitively understand that imaginary and invisible lines, or no imaginary or invisible lines, a leak in any part of the boat is going to bring the entire thing down. And the shared values model is really, as far as I understand, giving a business model to something that typically is considered more of a spiritual concept. The idea that whether you're talking about a community, a society, a nation, or a world, we're all in this boat together. So many people come to Parmarth Niketan, and we have these beautiful evening satsangs and question-answer times. And a common question that so many people ask, both coming to the ashram as well as in travels around the world, is, "I'm so confused. Our world is in such need today. I so much want to do something to help the world, to help the poor, to benefit the nation. And yet, I also want to be able to take care of my family. I even want to do more than that. I want to actually really succeed, really thrive, really prosper. And I don't know which path to go." Shared value says yes and yes. Both. And it's, to me, the most beautiful concept today that our world needs. The business model or the business strategy of stepping on others' heads in order to get ahead myself is not only bad business, but it's anachronistic today. It doesn't belong to the world in which we live. It's a vestige of some day, possibly past, possibly a day that ever really existed or may not have ever existed. But it certainly doesn't pertain today. Today, any value needs to be shared. Otherwise, it's not a meaningful value. Otherwise, it's not a lasting value. Whether we are talking about the accumulation of the value, whether we are talking about the enjoyment of the value, none of it can exist in a vacuum. Mark spoke so beautifully earlier and gave a wonderful slide showing how shared value is not just a redistribution of the pie, but it's actually an expansion of the pie. And that is what every sector of our world needs today. It's not just about how to take what we have and share it, but it's about how to use what we have, our abilities, our energies, our experience, our expertise, to use that and expand what everyone has. Today, doing well and doing good are not what we tend to consider as these mutually exclusive concepts. Today, they have to go together in order to really do well, not just for 5 minutes, not just in this quarter's annual report, but to really do well. We have to also do good. Shared value redefines the model of success. It tells us that the picture of success is much bigger than just the amount of profit, the amount of rupees or the amount of dollars in my bank account, in my company. It's giving us a much bigger picture in the same way that we realize that the cost of an item is much bigger than just what's on the price tag. We all intuitively understand that what we pay for an item in the store, the price on that tag, is not necessarily indicative of the true cost to the soil, the land, the rivers, all of our water supply, the air, the people who produced the product, their health, the health of their children. So in the same way that any real price tag would have to take into consideration the real price of that product from the production to the sales, in the same way, our definition of success has to expand. And that's what shared value is doing, is it's saying, my success is not in a vacuum. My success is inextricably linked to yours. Because if I develop a product, a service, a program, and you do not benefit from that, you do not utilize it, it does not uplift you, then my product is a failure. My program is a failure. You are the ones who are simultaneously the purchasers of my product and the beneficiaries of my product, which means that my financial success is directly related to and dependent upon how beneficial that product is for you. And in addition to redefining success, we are also redefining the concept of supply and demand. Typically, in the general business model, we supply whatever we think we can convince people to demand. And we utilize our media, our advertising, our society, to convince people to demand that which I want to produce. So whether it's a new model of mobile phones, whether it's a new brand of jeans, whether it's a new type of car, our entire marketing is based first on convincing people that they don't have enough, that there is something gravely lacking in who they are, and that my product is going to solve that. So just to give you one example, if we look at things, for example, like marketing or advertising for soap. Well, as Pujya Swamiji was speaking about our Global Interfaith Wash Alliance, soap is crucial to the concepts of sanitation and hygiene. It's crucial to the health of our planet. And yet, when we look at advertising and marketing for soap, what do we see? We see a commercial of a beautiful woman, and she's lathering up in the shower while she sings in the morning, and then her equally beautiful husband walks into the bathroom, and he's also singing, and then they walk out of the bathroom together. They walk into the kitchen. Their child has gotten himself out of bed, bathed, dressed himself, done his homework, eaten his Wheaties, and together the three of them walk out of the house hand in hand. And you'll see a little sign at the end that just says, Dove, or whatever our brand of soap may be. But we're not selling cleanliness. We're selling happy families. And the message of that given to all of us is, if you don't shower in the morning, or your husband or your wife doesn't sing to you in the morning, or you don't have a husband or wife, or you've got to drag your kid out of bed and force him to have a bath, and force him to do his homework, and force him to eat his Wheaties, or you don't have a kid. Well, the entire problem is that you're using the wrong brand of soap. And if you just would change your brand of soap, you too would look like this. We sell cars based on that. Children are singing in the back seat. Our children strangle each other in the back seat. So the whole problem is, well, we must be driving the wrong model of car. And if we just buy this one, our children too will sing in harmony in the back seat. I share this because this is really the model that so much of business is based on. There was no demand for a new brand of soap. There was no demand for a new model of car. But because that's what we produce, we've co-opted marketing to create a demand for what we supply. Shared value says no. Shared value says, let's look at really what the demand is. So we're not supplying to greed. We're supplying to need. And that by supplying to that need, our world benefits, and of course, we benefit. As an example, as Pujya Swamiji was speaking about toilets, so with our Global Interfaith Wash Alliance, we're doing so much work on this. Well, along with a toilet being built every 30 seconds, a child is perishing every 30 seconds due to treatable, preventable diarrhea. In India, we are losing about 1,600 children under the age of 5 every day simply due to lack of clean water, lack of sanitation, lack of hygiene. So building toilets, bringing in sanitation and hygiene, is not merely philanthropy. Those 1,600 children and the innumerable others who haven't perished today but are on the brink of perishing tomorrow or the day after, those who are not able to go to school because they're too sick, well, those are future customers, colleagues, partners. They are crucial cogs in the wheel of development in our society. And so when we look at business and we look at supply and demand, we recognize that that which we are supplying, beneficial for us, create a toilet that can run with no water, that can run with very little maintenance, that doesn't stink, that people actually want to use. Not only are you producing 1,600 consumers a day, 1,600 future partners a day, but when the government is building a toilet every 30 seconds, your company is going to become a multi-billion-dollar company. So this is what we're looking at with the new definitions. There's another wonderful story that I love of a man who's a carpenter in a company, and he's about to retire. And the owner of the company says to him, "Do me a favor, son. Before you leave and go on to another job, just one last house I want you to build. One last project for me." So he gives him the basic specifications and says, "But I trust you. You've worked for this company for so long. You're so smart. You're so competent. Build this home according to all of your best concepts." Well, the guy's retiring after this project. He doesn't need another promotion, another raise, another bonus. He doesn't need to ingratiate himself to his employer. So what does he do? He decides to cut a lot of corners in the building of this house because there's a lot of money to be made in commissions over the top, time to be saved. He'd much rather plan for his retirement holidays than put the time into the construction of this home. And when it's finally done, he unveils it to the boss, hands the keys to him. And the boss looks at him, smiles, and hands the keys back. And he says, "You've been such a loyal and wonderful employee that as your parting gift, I wanted to give you a home like the ones you've created here for me, for our company for so long. Take this home, my son, as your gift leaving this company." The shared value concept makes us understand that we are both the builder of the home and the resident, that we are the contractor, the architect, and the homeowner. That which we are creating and building is the home in which we need to live. It is, in my opinion, not only a great model, but it's the only model for the world that we're trying to create, this world as we speak about sustainability. And yet, when you talk about sustainability, it's really least common denominator we're talking about. I mean, if someone said to you, tell me about your marriage, and you said, sustainable.
Biodegradable.
That person would certainly not think that you had a great one. We're not looking to only create a sustainable future, a sustainable planet, a sustainable world. What do we want our marriages to be, our families to be? You want to be able to say, my marriage is great. It's positive, it's bright, it's peaceful. We grow together day by day. Not just sustainable. Similarly, for our future. Did you want me to end early? Am I supposed to end early? Okay, I just didn't know. It says 5 minutes, but if you needed me to end earlier, okay. So what we're looking to do is create not just a sustainable world, but a world in which living together as co-homeowners, co-residents on this planet, that future is bright, peaceful, and positive for everyone. I will conclude with a third and last of my favorite stories, which is a story of a woman who was home one day, and there's a knock on her door. And as she opens the door, there's 3 old men standing on her doorstep. And she says, come on in, come in. And they say, is your husband home? So she says, no, but that's okay, come on in. They say, no, we'll wait till your husband comes home. But my name is Love, and with me are success and wealth. And only one of us can enter your home. So when your husband comes home, please ask him which of us he would like to invite into the house. And I share this story because when we speak about shared value, so much of the time we feel like it's an either or. That it's this pendulum swing between doing good and doing well. This pendulum swing between what's good for society and what's good for my business. So the husband comes home and the woman tells him the story. He says, well, I think we should invite success in. Because if we do, then our son is going to get into the university and the graduate school he wants to go to. Then he will succeed greatly, and we will all prosper and thrive. She says, but honey, if we invite wealth in, then it really doesn't matter what college or graduate school this boy goes to, because we'll already be rich. Let's just invite in wealth. Then we don't have to worry about anything. The daughter says, Mom, Dad, we really appreciate what you want to do for us, but really your love is just the most important thing. My brother and I will be fine. Please invite Love in the home. So the woman goes out, touched by her daughter's bhav, and she says, okay, which of you is Love? One of the men stands. She says, you please come into our home. And he stands, and the other 2 men also stand, and Love crosses the threshold of the home, and the other 2 men start to cross behind him. And the wife starts to close the door, and she says, I'm so sorry, but you told us we could only have 1 man in our house, and we've chosen Love. Love says, if you had chosen success or wealth, he would have had to enter alone. But wherever Love goes, success and wealth always follow. And lastly, what shared value is based on love for society. Because if I don't love you, I can't know what you need. If I don't love you, I cannot but see you through my own glasses of what I want to create. It is only by love for our society, for our community, for our nation, and for our planet that we can possibly understand what is needed and then begin to build models of production and service that actually respond to that need. And what Mark has shown us, what our world is going to show us as shared value grows and blossoms, is that success and wealth not only follow on love's heels, but join it side by side as we move into this great and beautiful, not just sustainable, but bright and peaceful and positive future. Thank you.
That's fantastic. Why don't you stay there? We get some questions from the audience from you. That was beautiful. The only thing I would like to change is that I'd like to be home and I'd like my wife to work so that when the three beautiful women come, I can choose. That's the only difference in the narrative I would want. But on a serious note, it was beautiful and it was very well received. You know, it resonated at least with me. So we could take some questions for her. If you're breathless and you don't have any questions, then I ask. You're spellbound, right? So please give her a bigger round of applause. You know, unfortunately, in corporate world, love is a word that's a bad word. It's a four-letter word, right? It's not used. At best, it's affection. At best, it's shared vision, right? There's no concept of love. In fact, I would like you to tell us what do you think about the emotional well-being of individuals in corporates? Because until that emotional well-being happens, this love that you're talking about and co-creation won't happen.
Great question. What we know is that productivity is directly linked to the mental and emotional state of the worker. And we all know this. If you're miserable, you've just had a big fight with your wife or your husband or your mother or father, and you sit down to work on a project, some work, how effective are you? We learn this with children. When our children try to stay up all night and get stressed about exams, they don't do well. Because we cannot retain information, we cannot make creative use of that information when we are under stressed, when we are sleep deprived, when we're miserable. So emotional well-being is actually one of the most crucial aspects simply for productivity, even if I'm only looking at this in rupees and dollars and euros. Even if I'm only looking at it with this tunnel vision of profit as money, I still am profiting by the emotional well-being of my employees. Apple, Google, Hewlett-Packard, so many companies today not only have meditation rooms, but are paying people on the clock to meditate. I have so many friends working in Silicon Valley who get paid per day. Some companies 15 minutes, some companies half an hour, some companies even more than that, to actually go and meditate. Why would companies like Apple pay people to meditate? Because what we know is that when they walk out of that meditation room, something has shifted so fundamentally, not just in what we speak about spiritually, not just about their aura and their vibrations and their heart center, but something has shifted fundamentally in their creativity, in their problem-solving ability, in their productivity, in the way that they relate with colleagues, and that is financially beneficial to the companies. How many of us as business owners lose man-women hours with infighting between employees, between colleagues?
It's called emailing. It's called emailing.
What we know is that if all of our employees, colleagues, were working without being jealous of each other, without being in competition with each other, not the healthy competition to move together toward the finish line, but the competition that says only one of us can cross that finish line. If we weren't working with that goal in mind, if my goal were not just feeding my own ego, how much more productive we'd be for our companies. So bringing about love, emotional well-being, dare I say spiritual well-being, for our employees is something that I think we're going to see more and more in the coming years being built into budgets and business strategies, even with only profit as the bottom line.
Brilliant. I think that's I want to ask you a question to the audience, and I want to come back to you. I want to ask you, when the top 500 CEOs of the global corporations were polled, what was the number one priority they had for themselves? The number one, as defined by their boards, their coaches, their mentors. Number one. Responsibility, meditation. It's somewhere. If you add that, it's a single word I'm looking, and Swamiji's got that, but I won't ask you, sir. I knew you got it. But yeah, but build on that. Love, compassion, ownership. So if you add all this, today the CEOs and promoters of large corporates, mid-sized, they want mindfulness. Their coaches are focusing that the CEOs are more mindful so they can receive and hence give well. So really, being mindful is becoming the new biggest attribute for CEOs. So at this stage, we have a very mindful person here. We have Shri Suresh Prabhu, our Minister for Railways. So Sadhvi ji, please give her a big round of applause. She did really well. Very nice.